UFC Fight Night Vegas 98, Royval versus Taira takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha. Now, this is an interesting one because Lucas Rocha has fought at bantamweight before in his career. You know what I mean? He's the number 3 bantamweight in Brazil. Clayton Carpenter already in the UFC. This guy's being signed up to the UFC, impressed on the Contender Series with a big KO. He's got a lot of experience. I am going to pick him to beat Clayton Carpenter. The way I see this fight, it's a very, very close fight. But I think this guy's got more dog in him. He's got more savage in him. He's got more switch on, land a big shot ability in him. You know what I mean? He's a very small dude for the division, I do want to say as well. 5'3", scrappy, wild. I don't think he's really 5'3" though. I think he's like 5'4" and a bit, maybe. But he's listed at 5'3". But the dude's pretty good. You know what I mean? He fought at LFA, beat a guy at LFA that's pretty good, went to a decision with him. He's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot more experience than Clayton Carpenter, who has been out for a while now, which is always something to look into because usually that means to me that you're injured a lot of the time. You know, that's what that normally means. So I'm not considering that good time for Clayton Carpenter to take off right now. I mean, a lot of the things that I say about Clayton Carpenter that I would big him up with would be to say things like, oh, he's very young. You know, he's young for his career, 28 years of age. You know, he's on the come up. He's a young up-and-coming guy. He beat Juan Camilo Ronderos, which is a layup of an opponent. Should never have been in the UFC in the first place. A win over Edgar Chairez by unanimous decision is not that bad, though. You know what I mean? I was impressed by his performance there. There were moments, though. I just think that Lucas Rocha's a lot more of a dog than him. You know what I mean? This guy's finishing people consistently. He's got a lot more experience. He's 17-1 at the age of 24. He's younger. He's newer. He's been more active. I like him here. I like him here to beat Clayton Carpenter. And Carpenter does like to sort of hold people and be a very technical fighter when he wants to. But against such a short guy, a lot of times the shorter guys at flyweight are extremely hard to hold down. So I'm gonna go with Lucas Rocha to start the card. I think I like what I see. I see a bit of a bigger savage than I do in Clayton Carpenter here. So yeah, I'm going to go with him. We move on. Up the card, Dan Argueta versus Cody Haddon. I'm going with Cody Haddon. He's a very, very good prospect. I just watched a fight with him and Steve Erceg. They went 3 rounds. It was a very close fight. It literally came down to a moment in the 3rd round where Steve Erceg sort of reversed an inside trip attempt from Cody Haddon in the 3rd round and then used it to like get the back of Cody Haddon somehow when they reached the ground. And we've seen that Erceg can scramble with guys like Pantoja and work his way back up there as well without giving up his back or anything like that. So I think Cody Haddon's someone to watch out for. Looked good on the Contender Series. Beat a guy who had a bit of aura going into the Contender Series as well in Billy Brand. He was somewhat respected going into it. And he got smoked by Cody Haddon and didn't look all that good. And he was like, that was his big moment, really. That he was going to go in there and win and get into the UFC, and he was pointing to Paul Felder and stuff before the fight, and I was very impressed by Cody Haddon. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he's a very good fighter. I'm going to pick him to beat Dan Argueta because Dan Argueta, although big and a sizey, like he's like a Chandler bantamweight, pretty much, in the way that he's built. The guy just doesn't seem to have much finishing potential. And I think the UFC is going to get a little bit antsy about people stalling against the cage and not really doing anything with their grappling. And first of all, I think Cody Haddon's got great scrambles, and I think he's going to be able to do quite well moving forward. And I'm looking at 2 no contests. Premature stoppage against Ronnie Lawrence where he didn't tap. And then we got Miles Johns, no contest, unanimous, overturned. Miles Johns won that fight against him. He just doesn't seem to have anything. He doesn't have anything. Like, he won some fights on LFA, had some good performances, got into the UFC, got beat by Damon Jackson, and then nothing. There's nothing talented about him whatsoever. He's just a strong, athletic guy who's got good endurance. Like, Cody Haddon has talent. I'm going with Cody Haddon. He's got really good talent. Australians doing really well in the UFC right now. And, and after he lost to Steve Erceg, they did a lot of training together as well. I like that. I'm going with Cody Haddon. I think this is a no-brainer. We move on. Even though he might be a bit small for bantamweight, he has fought at flyweight. No, he fought Erceg at bantamweight. I'm going to go with Cody Haddon getting this one done. I'm going to say by finish. I think he'll get the finish over Dan Argueta, probably by TKO. We move on. Up the card, Chris Barnett versus Junior Tafa. I know that everyone loves Chris Barnett, and he's a meme, and oh my God, he's fat, and he got a wheel kick KO over Jan Vellante. It's funny. Junior Tafa's probably going to knock him out in round 1. He's a tough dude. Scary looking dude. Very, very scary looking dude. Not physically, but just in general. So, short guy, tough. Throws a wheel kick now and again, and you're like, whoa, he threw a low kick like that. Wow. A jumping switch kick. Whoa. You know what I mean? Like, occasionally you'll do something where you're like, oh my God, he's not just a fat random heavyweight. But then I'm thinking, dude, his boxing is kind of garbage, though. And Junior Tafa hits really hard and has really clean boxing. And I don't see Chris Barnett ragdolling him and grappling him. I'm going to go Junior Tafa. I just trust boxing at heavyweight a lot more than I do kicks. And Junior Tafa's got a lot of power. He's a young fighter. Very early in his career as well, compared to Chris Barnett, who's 23-8. You know what I mean? You go through his career, he's got some losses. He lost to Martin Bidet, which was a clean TKO. I don't know why they tried to call that illegal. He was landing behind the ear. We've had way worse back of the head shots that don't get called. Ben Rothwell put him away. He died of exhaustion in that fight. He's been KO'd in kickboxing. He lost to Romero in a grappling match immediately. I mean, he's been knocked out 3 times early in his career. I'm liking Junior Tafa's chances here. Young fighter. Hasn't had his own way in the UFC yet, Volta Volker. I was able to get a heel hook over him, and he looked quite silly, but I don't see Chris Barnett grappling and rolling for a leg at any point, unless it's a leg of chicken, you know what I'm saying? That was a fat joke, not a black joke, by the way. For fuck's sake. Got to clarify shit now. Nina's on me. You know what I mean? Either way, though, I'm going to go with Junior Tafa. I think he'll just put hands on Chris Barnett. And I'm rooting for Chris Barnett, but yeah. We move on. Up the card. I'm going with Junior Tafa. Niko Price versus Themba Gorimbo. I'm going to go with Gorimbo. This guy's kind of getting layups. I'll be honest. I know Niko Price is reasonably highly ranked for the unranked area of the welterweight division, but Ramis Brahimaj, Pete Rodriguez, Takashi Sato. This guy's on a 3-fight win streak, and they're plucking Niko Price out of nowhere for him. Like, I know he's promotable, and The Rock bought him a house. I get it. Like, he has a story. He gets emotional on the mic a lot of the time, and he's 33 years old, though. How much are we putting behind this guy to be giving him Niko Price right now? And Niko Price is good and actually surprised me by beating Alex Morono, but Morono's he's not a warrior, you know what I mean? Like, he's just a flabby, soft, no talent having hard worker is what I see in Alex Morono, no offense. I'm sure there'll be a ton of offense taken by that because it was a very offensive statement, but I'm going to go with Themba Gorimbo here over Niko Price. Just way faster on the feet. I'm actually going to say he gets it done by TKO on the feet. I'm going to go Themba Gorimbo. Niko Price ain't no slouch in the grappling. On the feet, I think he's just a bit too slow for Themba Gorimbo. I just don't know why they're not giving Themba a difficult test yet. 3 in a row. They're still giving him Niko Price. I thought Niko Price would be someone that they'd give to like a dangerous up-and-coming prospect to like get through. You know what I mean? Themba's 33. I guess maybe Niko Price is just not accepting fights against the Michael Moraleses or the Carlos Prateses of the division. Obviously, they're not looking for that fight now, but previously. So this is the type of fight where he's thinking, okay, this guy went to a few decisions. Maybe I got a chance here. I'll take this one. So I'll go Themba Gorimbo, TKO on the feet. Way faster. Price's chin has been a little suspect recently. I'll go with Gorimbo. We move on. Jonathan Pearce versus Pat Sabatini. I'm actually going to go with Pat Sabatini here over Jonathan Pearce. Jonathan Pearce is good. He's not talented as a fighter. He's a tough guy with great cardio and endurance, but he never does anything where you think to yourself, oh, that was really slick. Stand-up's very sloppy, very slow. So could he TKO Pat Sabatini, who is a bit chinny? Yeah, probably, but I think that Pat Sabatini actually has a grappling edge over Jonathan Pearce, who does make a lot of mistakes in the grappling. Like, he gets overzealous, goes for things that you might not be able to go for yet, and loses position. We saw that a bunch against David Onama. The amount of times Pearce went for the back and lost it in that fight. Sabatini's very good at grappling. Very good at grappling. Got a Suloev stretch over Niko Price, who's a welterweight, you know. Lost to Diego Lopez. That's the only real loss other than Damon Jackson, who caught him with a front kick to the face. I don't see that happening here. Nor do I see it happening if him and Damon Jackson rematch a few times. But other than that, he's kept pretty good control over a lot of opponents. You know, even Jamal Emmers dropped him. He subbed him immediately. He's got good submissions. So I'm actually going to go with him getting a submission win over Jonathan Pearce. Yeah. I've got Pat Sabatini getting this one done. I think the grappling advantage technically and talent-wise is just a little bit too much. And Pearce is just a little bit too slow on the feet for me to think that he's going to get this one done by TKO. So I'm going to go with Pat Sabatini. We move on. CJ Vergara versus Ramazan Temirov. Temirov's good. A lot of finishing potential. Fought at Rising. Trains at Makhmud Muradov's gym. And they've got a lot of Uzbekistanis there. A lot of them coming up. You look at the whole roster, it's just nothing but Uzbekistan flags and nothing but Uzbekistan people. All of them. There's some prospects, 5-0, 7-1, all this. There's a bunch coming up in that gym. And he's one of them. And he's like the leader, I guess, right now. Because he's 17-2. He's on a 9-fight win streak. Got some wicked TKO wins. Got ground and pound. He has grappling ability. He has some cool submissions. So he has a cool submission. Yeah. I like this guy. I like that he went to Rising first as well and just took a little jump up in comp. Even though it's not a crazy jump up in competition, it's something. And at flyweight, it's hard to tell based on the regional scene how good someone's going to be, because there's not a lot of competition on the regional scene a lot of the time. Just one of them gets through. There's a lot of fighters, but not a lot of them are good. You know what I mean? So you'll rarely see a guy go up against another undefeated monster on the regional scene in the flyweight division. So I just think CJ Vergara is dog shit. I don't know why I'm trying to justify this. I don't think he's good at all. And I see Ramazan Temirov as a guy who's very explosive on the feet, very dangerous. And I remember the fight where he was literally, where CJ Vergara was literally running away from Daniel Lacerda. Ended up getting a win, but got stung a bunch of times, you know? Beat Vinicius Salvador, but Salvador was awful in hindsight, wasn't he? Lost to Asumat Almabayev, had a decent moment there. Got smoked by Tatsuro Taira in their fight. I'm going to go with Ramazan Temirov getting this one done, probably by decision. I think CJ Vergara will put up a fight and maybe get a round off of him. I just don't think he's all that. And now he's 33, and it's not like he's a prospect. You know, you're looking at a 33-year-old 12-5 opponent versus a 27-year-old 17-2 fighter who's been incredibly active. I like this for him. And he's got finishing ability. Got a bunch of TKOs on his record. I'm going with him to get this one done. A lot of experience. We move on. Chidi Njokuani versus Jared Gooden. I'm going to go with Chidi Njokuani. Jared Gooden. What are these? Somebody. You know when you look at a matchup sometimes and you think, why are they still around? You know, like, how haven't they been cut from the promotion yet? What purpose do they serve to keep them on? This is one of those where I end up thinking to myself, like, why? But I know he did beat Wellington Turman. It's a decent win. Turman was looking good, and he ended up getting a submission over him, which is pretty good. Carlston Harris beat him before that, though. You know what I'm saying? Harris is a bit retarded in the way that he fights a lot of the time, so that's not really a great look. And I look at Chidi Njokuani, and I think, coming off a win over Reese McKee, close fight, that's tough. I don't like seeing that as much, you know? Lost a bunch at middleweight, but he's a massive, rangy, athletic guy. I like his ability to get a finish out of nowhere more than I do Jared Gooden's. So I'm going to go with Chidi Njokuani getting this one done. Long, rangy, sniper, athletic. More athletic than Jared Gooden. Yeah. Yeah, I'll go Chidi Njokuani. This is one, some of these matchups, man, I start looking at them thinking, these must be on decent contracts and they serve no purpose to be in the UFC. Why are they still here? You know? You got to start shedding some of this useless roster spots just being hogged by people like this. It's kind of insane, but yeah. Speaking of which, we move on up the card. Josh Fremd versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. Now, Abdul Razak Alhassan looked good in his last fight, but he literally just illegally finished a man with back of the head shots in Cody Durden. Got overturned to a no contest because of it. A lot of people are saying, oh, Cody Durden milked it, what a fraud and all this, but no. Abdul Razak Alhassan literally fucking illegally hit him to the back of the head. They say accidental blows. They weren't even accidental blows to the back of the head. He non-stop rained down punishment to the back of Cody Brandage's head. Non-stop in the fight. Before that, he got dominated and dog-walked by Joe Pyfer. Has some good wins other than that, though. Claudio Ribeiro's a dangerous athletic guy with some knockout power. Alessio De Chirico, similar thing. Went to a split decision with Joaquin Buckley, who was a little bit outmatched at middleweight. I'm going to go with him to beat Josh Fremd, but yeah, I think he'll get it done. I can see him hitting the back of Josh Fremd's head. He goes for that stuff. You know, this guy's got no honor, no respect. If he sees the back of the head, he will go for it. So that's something you have to consider here. Josh Fremd lost to Andre Petrosky. Got smoked by Roman Kopylov. A win over Jamie Pickett and Cedric Dumas. I don't see him ragdolling Abdul Razak Alhassan, who's very strong. And I don't see him winning this on the feet either. I don't think he's a good fighter, Josh Fremd. I think he's awful. So I'm going to go Abdul Razak Alhassan. We move on. Up the card, Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. Again, I'm going to go with Daniel Rodriguez here. I just mentioned Alex Morono earlier on the card when talking about Niko Price. He's not good. Can't gain muscle. No fast twitch fibers in his body. And it's not even like he's got this killer grappling game because he's weirdly strong. Why is my nose itching so much? It's not even like he's got this really good grappling game. And trust me, though, once you feel the grip strength, it's just different with Alex Morono. Like, no. I just don't. Another one of these fighters who's probably earning a lot of money in the UFC. And I'm wondering why they keep him around. You know? I really do wonder that. Because he probably is on a decent contract. Because at one point, after being a bit 50-50 in his career, after at one point being on a 3-fight win streak, he put together 4 in a row over Cerrone and old man Cerrone. And then Zawada, Mickey Gall, Semmelsberger. All iffy fights that didn't look too good for him. And he didn't look too good in. And then since then, he's been pretty hit and miss. Got smoked. Well, looked all right against Ponzinibbio. This is the problem with Morono. He looks all right in one fight. And then I know he got smoked by Ponzinibbio in the 3rd round, but he keeps it close with these guys. Even Buckley he had a good first 2 rounds with. Ish. You know what I mean? So he's well-rounded. I just don't see no talent. No athleticism. D-Rod has talent in his hands. I'm going to go with D-Rod getting this one done. Way crisper boxing. Way more technical boxing. Way slicker boxing. Way more power. I'm going to say D-Rod gets this one done by TKO. 2nd round over Alex Morono. I just don't believe in anything Morono exists for. His existence in general is very matter of what makes him who he is. I don't believe there's talent there. I'm going with Daniel Rodriguez, who I think has a knack for boxing. So yeah, we'll go with that. We move on. Up the card, Cory McKenna versus Julia Polastri. Now this one may be a switch up of opponents because yes, Cory McKenna was supposed to be fighting Polyana Viana, and Julia Polastri took this one on short notice. It's interesting. She's all right, Julia Polastri, innit? But she ain't beat no one good. At one point, she had a bit of steam behind her career. What are these matchups, man? It's just like, how are we ever supposed to know? What the fuck are we supposed to do about this? How? It's so dumb. I could see Polastri pulling it off. But I don't like the short notice step up for her on very short notice here. That's a big part of why I'm probably going to have to go with... I'm probably going to have to go with the full camp, the full training camp. It's a 3-round fight. I'm not expecting an early finish. I'll say Cory McKenna gets this one done with her grappling. Majority of people think Polastri wins, but I'll go against it. I'll say Cory McKenna gets this one done. I've not been too impressed by her either, though, in moments. But I'm going to go with Cory McKenna. Full training camp. It's got to count for something over a week step up. We move on. Up to the card. Up the card to another fight, which is Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. This is an interesting one. Rafa Garcia is making a career for himself in the UFC, but again, no talent, no pop, no vavavoom. I know Grant Dawson is awful on the feet and may never be good because he's just not wired that way. And his chin's suspect, you know what I mean? Smoked by a Bobby Green, straight left. I get it. It was a good shot, but we eat those. You know what I mean? Doba does. Chin's a bit suspect, but other than that, his grappling is phenomenal and really good. And there is talent there. You know, he beat Joe Selecki, which, dude, it's just such a grind to a fun halt to go to some of these Apex cards after trying to cover UFC 307. And I spend all day looking into who am I going to pick? And then I just don't end up going live. And then it's just, I wish I didn't have to do this, but I'm committed to always predicting the cards, innit? It's fucking the duality of an MMA YouTube content creator. Algorithm, Apex Fight Night predictions. Rafa Garcia's shit. His name's gifted. He's been gifted with no talent. Clay Guida fight got scrappy, but he won it. Mahashate fight, decision. Like, I'm just seeing no finishing potential, and I think Grant Dawson is going to easily be able to out-grapple him here. He's coming back off a win. If this was him coming off the TKO loss, maybe I'd worry a little bit more, but he's coming off a win. He's got momentum. Fought in June. Now he's fighting here in October, not that long afterwards. Back on track. I reckon he'll get this one done. ATT. They got to be doing something right. Moicano talks him up all the time as well, so especially his grappling. That's got to stand for something. I'm going to go Grant Dawson. We move on. Brad Tavares versus Yun Yong Park. This is the co-main event, huh? Tavares doesn't get taken down. That's something we know. Ain't no way that's ever going to happen. He's at Extreme Couture, which is like a great gym right now to be at in terms of making improvements. Gregory Rodriguez put him away. He's been KO'd a few times recently, you know. Bruno Silva put him away, but he scrapped with Duplessis for 3 rounds. You know? Nearly got round 2 until the end of round 2. The last minute and a half of round 2 is where Duplessis started to win it back for himself and get the round clearly, and then he really did well in round 3 on a very broken and beaten Brad Tavares. Yun Yong Park is so iffy, though. Like, he clearly beat Eric Anders. I'm not calling that a split decision. And then you beat Dennis Talulin with your grappling, Albert Duraev with your grappling after sort of wearing him down, and then Joseph Holmes with your grappling as well. A split decision with Andre Muniz ain't bad, but I just don't think he's got it on the feet. I'm going to say Brad Tavares. I don't see Yun Yong Park having the power to put him away by TKO. I don't see Tavares having a cardio problem. He ain't getting taken down this fight. That's something that Yun Yong Park always has to mix into his game in order to win. I'm going to go with Brad Tavares getting this one done by TKO on the feet or a decision based on outstriking him. We move on. Up the card, Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira. The vast majority of people are picking Tatsuro Taira. I've watched back Taira versus Perez. And although the commentary in that fight were doing nothing but talk about how amazing Taira was, is it just me or was he not kind of mid-fraud check before pulling off that goofy back takedown on one leg that hurt Perez? Now, I know he's good at getting the back and I know he's a very technical fighter. Royval's a very good scrambler, and I don't see him being finished by Taira. I don't see him being finished, and it's a 5-rounder. If this was a 3-rounder, I think, okay, Taira. He can get the back in some rounds, ride it out. I don't think Royval will finish him eventually. 5 rounds in there with Royval, and I don't trust you to finish him. I have a really gut instinct that Royval's going to pull this one off. I know I should be picking Taira because he's the big prospect, and that would be the easy thing to do, but I've been watching back some fights, man, and there's some hairy moments with Taira. That Shayrez fight was pretty close, you know? I don't know, Royval's looked bad in fights as well. But I like him here. I think he can make Taira break. I think he can put pressure on him. And if Taira don't get immediately what he wants from some of these grappling... but he did get held down so easily by Pantoja, but he still kept up good volume. I am going to go Royval. Altitude against Morono, he looked good. People are going to say, it's not the same Morono. I'm going to take the underdog in Royval here. I think he can put it on Taira. I've been noticing some things in Taira's game that I'm like, is he really this unbeatable monster? And his record suggests so. He's 16-0, and if he wins, title shot's right there for him. Don't know when they're going to make Asakura have his debut. That's been a long time coming. That just never happened. The guy went from Carlos Hernandez to Alex Perez, and now it's Royval. That's such a jump. Hernandez ain't all that. Shayrez, I know Royval's Mexican heritage, and that's Taira's thing, is to destroy them. Shayrez got a bit hairy in that fight, but he won it. Had to escape some dangerous submission positions there as well. I think this is going to be a non-finish. You couldn't finish Shayrez. Candelario you took to a decision as well. I know that was a while ago in his career, and he obviously is making improvements. I feel like Perez was arguably winning the fight against him, and it was looking a bit bad for Taira in that fight. I don't see him finishing Royval. I don't see him chinning Royval. And that's a big part of it. Because I don't see Royval getting submitted. I really don't. Royval was looking great against Pantoja in their first fight that they had. Shoulder injury against Morono. Other than that, at flyweight, what's really happened to him? He's been dropped a few times. You know what I mean? Shoulder injury against Morono. He was looking all right in that fight before that. Pantoja, he was looking really good, and then he got caught in a rear naked choke. And it's Pantoja. And other than that, he went 5 rounds with Pantoja. Let me recheck the stats, because I was skimming through it, and I was like, yeah, he did get held down by Pantoja for a long time in that fight. I'm just going to double check some stats real quick, because I think he, although clearly losing, I think he made a pretty good showing for himself, more than we think he did. He actually outlanded. That's what I thought. Pantoja had a really good round 1, and then Royval did outland him in 5, 3, and 2, but just got controlled for so much of the fight, but didn't get submitted, and it's Pantoja. I don't see Taira chinning him. I don't see him submitting him. 5 rounds with Royval's so tricky. Taira's not really fought a guy this lanky and rangy before. They're all the same for Royval. They're all about that 5'8" level. I'm going to go Royval. I'm going to say Royval gets this done by like late rounds TKO, and then there's just no hype at flyweight forever. See you later. Goodbye. I'm going Royval with an upset in the main event. Goodbye.